Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at PoeGroupAdvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I've got a repeat guest on today that I'm very excited to talk to, Geraldine Carter. I think this is your third visit with us.
I think so.
I think it is. And just if you don't know Geraldine, she coaches single owner CPAs to get down to 40 hours without losing revenue. Her clients stop working weekends, then evenings, and they just make as much money as they did before. She's got an engineering degree from Cornell University, lives in the mountains in Idaho, where she can often be found biking or running after her kids. Welcome back.
Thanks, Brandon. It's always great to be back.
Yeah, lovely to see you. I see you got a great poster of Montana in your background, and
I try not to confuse my clients with my geography, but
you're from Idaho, but
I am now.
Yeah, cool. Well, today we're going to get into talking about scaling, and pre-show we were talking about some of the challenges about how do you scale a firm and where are the potholes or the roadblocks. So I'll start with a quick question. Before we get into that, I'd love to hear just what's new with you since we caught up last. What have you been up to? And
yeah, what's new with me is business is great in that there are CPAs who are raising their hand to be like, yes, I'm overworked and I'm over it. Help, let's stop working weekends, like you say at the top. And there are more and more folks who are coming forward with needing help with stuff like business boundaries inside their business to make sure that their clients are well behaving and that the relationship works well back and forth, and that they are wanting to work less. They're seeing it as a possibility and not an obligation. And they're implementing ways to actually make that happen and make that come alive.
yeah,
So it's really fun to see the progress that clients, CPAs are making in terms of having that be their new reality, that they no longer work weekends, they eventually no longer work nights. And then what's really cool is watching them go to the next level, which is down to 25 hours, where they really dial in their systems and figure out their SOPs, delegate work down the line, stop being the bottleneck because they're the only one with the expertise, the technical expertise. And then going to subscription, which is stuff like content behind a paywall and running Facebook ads to evergreen content that, builds out a subscription model in the way that I think that some of the thought leaders in the industry have been talking about for a while. So those things are all really fun. And what that means for me in my own business, and sort of what's new with me, if you will, is scaling like we're talking about today. And kind of in this way means that you can work so much less and way less pressure, way less stress, which means I have way more time to do way more fun stuff in my own life.
got it. Okay. We're talking about scaling challenges. And I remember when I scaled my business, and I'm in a bit of a scaling phase right now, is I didn't mind working crazy hours. Like when I first started my firm, I would work. I remember having a conversation with my wife, like, hey, it's going to take a lot of work, but it's going to be temporary. We're not going to do this, but to get it off the ground, to get it going, to get things, it's going to require some sacrifice. Are you up for that? And she said yes. And I also kept the promise that it was temporary. And you have a tremendous energy, like especially in that startup phase, you have a lot of energy for the business, and you don't really want to do. It doesn't feel like work in a way. But then at some point you realize, like, this is not sustainable. And then I've come to the conclusion that not only is it not sustainable, it's not good for the business either. Like, not only is it not good for you personally, it's not good for the business. That actually taking time off and having more of a balance in terms of your schedule makes the scaling faster, and it's really counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into like what you see as the major challenges people face when they're growing a firm. And I imagine they come to you maybe once they've kind of gotten to a point where like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's we see that a lot too. It's like, hey, I've got this I've got this bit of a mess here. Help me figure out a way to simplify and streamline it. But
Yeah.
what are the challenges that a lot of your clients face in that scaling journey?
I think one of the core challenges is that we grew up in a mentality in a world where we thought that money came from work. Most of us came up through the ranks, W-2, and how we got paid was for our time for doing work. And when we become business owners, we hang our own shingle because we think, great, I don't want to make the boss rich. I want to make this money my own. And so we do the work and we find the people who are willing to pay us to do the work and put the time in to get the work done. But when you hit 6 or early 6 figures, you realize there are only so many hours in the day and you just can't make more money, right? You hit the income ceiling and you wonder why you're bumping up against it and can't get through it. So a lot of people will hire because they think, well, I have all this work. If I could hire low at a low hourly rate and pay for those hours, get somebody else to buy them high, then I can profit off the difference. But the business model is still based on work and time. And the business owner still thinks that work is what they need to do in order to make more money in their business. And the business owner also has a pile of work and thinks the way for me to work less is to just get these things done, and then I will work less. And what they end up doing is working, and the work just never goes away. And part of the problem is that money doesn't come from work. It doesn't come from time. It doesn't come from reports and deliverables. It comes from the value that you create for your clients. So the more the CPA is working, the less time they have of their own to pick their head up and ask themselves, how can I create more value for my clients? How can I get them better results? What are the results that my clients even want? Why are they asking me to do this work for them? How can I get them better results? How can I get them better results faster and with a better experience? But if your head is down working all the time because you think that's how you make money, you don't have time to ask that other question. So they just end up perpetuating work because they don't have the right solution in their hand.
Right. And what you're basically highlighting is a pretty large shift in mindset.
Yeah, it's a 180.
And if people have had the habit of billing by the hour
Mm-hmm.
and literally equating time to money,
yeah,
that's how they bill their clients. That's a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a necessary shift, but it's a big shift.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile shift. Because if you take it to the other extreme, if you think that work is correlated with money, and correlation, I'm sure you remember, ranges from -1 to +1. If you think that work is strongly correlated with money, you will work to make money. But what if you flip it and you say, what if work is inversely correlated with money, in that the more I work, the less I make? Then what do you think about?
And here's the other thing about it too, is if your clients are used to you billing by the hour, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes your clients have the mentality that time equals
Mm-hmm.
money, well, then that's also keeps you trapped in that system.
Yeah.
So it's not just changing your mindset, but you might have to change your client's mindset. And I heard this funny expression is, you can't change your clients, but you can change your clients, meaning, the dual meaning there. So sometimes that's required too, to make that leap.
You may be able to change how your clients think. What I find observing with my own clients, I mean, my job is to help change how my clients think. So we have proof that you can help people change how they think. But I'm a coach. I'm trained to help people change how they think. If you're a CPA, you're probably not trained in helping people change how they think. But nonetheless, there are some clients that you can help change how they think. You can help them see things differently and so on. What I observe is that if you have clients who view you as a hired hand to do work for them, it's very difficult for them to change they have little incentive to change how they view you. And if you're going to go through to the next level in your business, it's helpful to recognize that not all of your existing clients will come with you, that there will be some clients almost by necessity that will stay behind because they don't want to change how they view you. They were perfectly happy when you bill them out at $175 or $125 an hour. That worked for them. And they don't want to shift to your new price and package model. So they're going to go find somebody else who bills $125 or $175 an hour, and that's fine. You want to high grade, you want to. I don't want to tell people what they should do. But it may be easier to high grade your existing clients who were looking for you to be offering higher value services, and then also attract people who were looking for higher value services that generate the results that you can help them create in their business. So I wouldn't focus too much energy on trying to help clients change how they view you.
Yes. And I think one of those things that I've seen with working with clients, going through kind of a shift in the types of clients they wanted to attract and work with, is experimenting with new clients. And you've got to steady, most CPAs and accountants right now do have lots of opportunity in the marketplace to get new clients. And that's a perfect place to experiment with packaging and different pricing models and different ways of working with people. And I think once you've gotten a few of those on board and you know that model works and you know it works well, you've got examples, then it's easier to have those conversations with existing clients to say, look, this is the model I'm working. I know it works. This is how it works. I think you'll get more value. This is why I think you'll get more value. That might be the way, just from a practical matter, I've seen be pretty effective for owners.
Yeah. And the way that we talk about this in Mastermind is you've been running the crosstown local and you have a bunch of passengers who like the crosstown local, but you probably have some passengers who also want to get on the Uptown Express. And you want to drive the bus that is the Uptown Express. So you say, hey, as of September 1st, this bus is going to be the Uptown Express. We would love to take you uptown if that's where you want to go. The price for an uptown ticket is this much. Here's the machine where you stick your credit card in. If you want to keep going back and forth across town, that's not this bus. You can hop off here at this stop, and the next one will be around in 5 minutes. We wish you well on your traveling journeys, right? Then you make a left-hand turn, you go uptown. But you first make sure that you have passengers on your bus who want to go uptown, so that you can so that you have those passengers, who you know want to go with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you looked at your practice the way a buyer would? It's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture when buried in the finer details. With the lessons within our latest book, How to Prepare Your CPA Firm for a Sale, you'll learn to build upon your firm's success and make your firm more enjoyable for you and your staff or a future buyer. Go to pogroupadvisors.com/prepare for your free copy.
If you own a CPA practice, you're no stranger to the grind. It's easy to get so buried in work that you lose sight of the bigger picture. Oftentimes, in order to improve, we need to change our point of view. Accounting Practice Academy by Poe Group Advisors gives you that fresh perspective, so you can achieve success on your terms. This virtual workshop gives you the tools and mindsets to grow your bottom line and make your firm less owner dependent. You'll use your firm's data to zoom out and see your challenges and opportunities with amazing clarity. Most APA members come to realize that pruning their clients and doing less will actually generate more income. Polk Group Advisors has sold hundreds of accounting practices. We know that the firms that are the easiest to operate are also the most valuable ones in the marketplace. APA is the only workshop built from that mergers and acquisitions perspective, which means our members build more valuable practices. Create a better practice for you and your employees to enjoy, or build it to sell. The choice is yours.
I'm thinking of scale. When I think of the word scaling, I think of people who are growing really quickly. And one thing that we've experienced with a lot of the firms that we've sold a lot of cloud firms, which do tend to grow. They tend to grow more rapidly than traditional firms.
Mm-hmm.
At least the ones that we've sold, that seems to be the way that we're seeing. And what I've also noticed is that those cloud firm owners that scale rapidly tend to be more entrepreneurial. They tend to be more sales focused, more visionary, and they don't really enjoy the operational side of the business. And once it gets to a certain point, they get exhausted with all of the little day-to-day operational concerns that pop up. And I don't know, have you seen that too? Is it's almost like there's a different sort of personality that tends to be in that startup company and grows it really fast.
So the folks that I work with are not the starty-uppy types who want to build something, scale it super fast, and sell it for $1 bajillion. I've got the folks who are way overworked and they're looking at solving a different problem, right? We're solving the overwork problem and then eventually growing and or scaling. I also think that it might be helpful to separate out scaling from growing and scaling from growing fast, right? Because you said, I think of scaling as growing quickly. There are all kinds of definitions for scaling and for growing, and sometimes they're used interchangeably. I don't have a wrong or right about that. I think of scaling as ways where you can leverage beyond simply adding staff. Where you're growing, you're adding staff, but your expenses are kind of keeping pace with your revenue. So what are you growing? You're growing your revenue, you're growing your headcount, but you're also growing your expenses, and you're probably growing the total number of hours that are being used in your business. When I think of scaling, I think about how can we get a lot more output with far less effort, and especially with far less effort from staff. So what levers can we use? We can leverage technology. We can leverage evergreen content. We can leverage productized services potentially and digital products. So when I think about scaling, I typically think about how do we get out of the traditional inventory model that is most CPA firms of buying hours low and selling them high.
Right.
And finding more effective, powerful ways to grow revenue with far less effort,
Right,
so that we can scale up.
I think you're right about making a distinction between growth and scaling, and I agree with your distinction. One thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking is the firms that are scaling rapidly, they don't have a choice but to make those changes, because it literally they're running everything to the limit.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they still want to keep going. And so in order to break those limits, you have to think a different way.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of those firms that are scaling, that literally are rapidly growing, maybe come to these conclusions or forced into these other solutions almost. And these solutions also benefit, no matter what pace you're growing, you can still adopt those solutions without pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in that piece, so you can grow, but I think there are limitations to the speed at which you can grow through the traditional model of hiring through staff. Even with technology, I don't know about you, but I'm just not seeing all of a sudden a whole bunch of CPAs who are kicking it back 5 days a week on the beach with a Mai Tai. They're all still working loads of hours.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's the norm. I think that is the norm. Which,
yeah,
but there are a lot of people who figured that out, and so it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be. It doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah.
Back to what you were saying, I think believing that it doesn't have to be is probably one of the biggest obstacles. We're talking about obstacles here. I think believing that there's another way, believing that it's possible, is a really key component of making it so.
Mhm. If your mindset is not lined up with making it so, you will not make it so. Because your mind is just going to look for evidence to confirm whatever you already believe. So if you believe that working long hours is just the way that it is for CPAs, and that's just what we do, you will do everything. Your brain will do everything in the background to create that reality for you. And it will not see all the ways that that's not true, because that would just be conflicting evidence, and then it would have to deal with the conflicting evidence. But if you tell your brain, say, hey, I want to figure out the way to do this on 25 hours a week or on 15 hours a week. And I have a client who I've worked with who works 15 hours a week. That's the most she will allow herself to work. Her margins are in the 70s, and she makes more than 6 figures. The most she works is 15 hours a week. She's on my podcast. You can go listen. Listeners can listen if they want. Because she set it up that way, because she believed it was possible. She told herself she had to figure out how to do it that way, because she only wanted to work when her kids are in school. So she figured out how to do it that way. But if you approach it from, well, I guess this is just going to be a slog, and being a business owner is a hard work, and everybody knows how hard it is, and we suffer and we sweat and we come home bruised and battered, and staff are such a pain. And they're like, if it weren't for my staff, I'd have an amazing business. If we believe all those old stories, that's what you'll go and create. So the work that I do with my clients, or part of the work that I do with my clients, is getting their brain on board first that, hey, where we're headed is 25 hours. And here's what this is going to look like when we're there. And here's what I'm going to think about my time. And here's what I'm going to think about money. And here's what I'm going to think about my clients. And we purposely choose where we direct what we think about and what we need to feel in order to get there, which is kind of hand wavy to be talking to accountants about how they feel. But when they work from a place of being frustrated and stressed and overwhelmed, they're not nearly as productive as when they work from a place of peace and calm and lightness and joy and freedom. So we talk about how we feel, because we want to make sure that we can always return to the headspace and mind space of feeling light and free and motivated and excited and joyful, so that we can think all the thoughts that we need to about, this is where my business is going and I'm taking it there, rather than just allowing it to spiral in the accidental trench of 60 hours a week.
Right. No, I think that might be one of the biggest obstacles, is just what your current belief system is. And
it runs everything.
Yeah.
Underneath it, whether you know it or not, it's running everything. It's just your brain's just a giant algorithm.
Yeah.
Running computations in the background, and whatever formulas it runs on is what it goes and executes.
Yeah. I saw this, I remember this book that had this image of an elephant and maybe a mouse on top of the elephant. And I wish I could remember the title of the book, but the elephant represent your emotions, and the mouse represents your sort of logical brain. And the mouse thinks the mouse is in control, but really it's the emotions that are in control. And
so good.
It's really true. And so I think and business owners in general tend to be, I mean, there's just we're on an emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
It's hard. It's not an easy thing,
Yeah,
right? If it were
it's not an
easy,
easy thing.
everybody would do it.
Yep.
So I like that you kind of dive into the emotional aspects of getting people to be motivated to make change.
Yeah, and we don't get all weepy or anything,
Right.
but we recognize that being a business owner, like you say, is challenging and it's a roller coaster. And having support of people around you who know what the roller coaster is like, know the ups, know the downs, and know that it's totally fine, that that's just part of the experience. Just having that normalized around you is invaluable.
Yeah. And those hard boundaries and obstacles, like your client that said, okay, 15 hours a week, because I really want to spend time with my children. Like those constraints force you to think in other ways, kind of
Yeah.
not much like, unlike what I was talking about with scaling companies. They're
Yeah.
hitting their limitations.
Yeah.
Their constraints are just a little different. But I had a client that we sold his business 2 years ago now, and he had one other company that was doing extremely well, better than his accounting firm. And so he had a big opportunity cost. So he only had about 500 hours a year to dedicate to his firm, and he figured out how to make that work.
Yeah.
And it worked very well. It wasn't just it was a very well run firm with 500 owner hours a year. So it can be done.
And I would argue that not only can it be done, we are seeing it be done, right? I would argue that it is done better when approached this way. Because if you approach it from, well, I'm just going to do the work, and as long as the work takes is as long as it takes, then it just sort of bleeds into your evenings and then into your Saturdays and then into your Sundays. And then things happen like you're working all the time, your brain gets tired, it makes mistakes when it's tired. So then you've got to mop up and do the work again. And then your client might be on the receiving end of the mistake, which isn't great for them. They have, they're willing to forgive you for mistakes a certain amount of times, but it's not great for them either. And your business gets less efficient, and you're less focused on results for your clients, and you're less focused on delivering high quality results as fast as possible with a great experience for your clients. So I would argue that coming at it from the opposite side of, well, we'll just see how long it takes, is terrible for your clients and even worse for you, because you're just not sharpening your sword all the time. And they're getting a product that's like, well, it's not intentionally designed. It's just designed around, well, this is just how long it takes to do the work, rather than giving thought to what's the best possible quality product we can provide. And there are a lot of clients who want to buy the best possible quality product that is out there. And it can be difficult for them to find. So why not make it easy for them to find by constraining yourself into this idea of 500 hours a year while providing your clients with the best possible results in the least amount of time, and see what your brain, your creativity can come up with.
Yeah. What are some of the other growth challenges you see? I think, the biggest one is kind of going from changing that mentality. I know people are a bit of a constraint right now in the industry. I'm definitely hearing that, but I sort of feel like that might be one of those constraints that's another blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
That it does force you to think about other ways to approach your work.
Yep.
So we're seeing a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of that is people can't find the people they want. And so they're looking at technology, they're looking at outsourcing, they're looking at just alternate solutions. And I think that's a positive side of that.
Yeah.
What other obstacles do a lot of your clients face in their growth journey?
So I agree with you on people are constrained. That's only a thought. And I think it's a blessing, because like you say, it forces you to think outside the box to find better solutions. Another one that comes up is boundaries. I have one book coming out that needs to come out first. It's down to 40 hours. It's down to 40 hours, how to end overworking in the accounting space. But after that, the next book that I'm going to write is Healthy Business Boundaries for CPAs. There's an hourly billing component to this that rewarded a giant stack of work on your desk. Because you could come into work, there was a pile of to-dos, you could get to work, it took time, you billed for the time you made money. So you had a backlog of work to do to guarantee revenue. So you said yes to everything to increase the size of the pile to guarantee your revenue. The pricing mechanism in the accounting space is changing. People are moving off of hourly billing because they see how toxic it is. But the business model has a lag time in catching up. And there's still very much a pile of work on CPAs' desks that they say yes to most things. And when clients are late in getting documents, all too rarely the CPA doesn't have a consequence for that. And the CPA ends up bending themselves into a pretzel to accommodate for the client who didn't get their documents in on time. And there's no expedite fee, there's no late fee, there's no rush charge. It's like, they just allow it to happen. So I like to say to my clients that there are no bad clients. There are only clients who show you where your business needs shoring up. I went to send my passport for renewal to the State Department yesterday, and it's 4 months to get it renewed, but I'm leaving the country in 3 months. And I was grateful that I could pay the $60 expedite fee so that I could get it in 2 months. Now, is the State Department going to bend itself into a pretzel because I wasn't paying attention to when my passport was due? No, they don't let it become a problem for them. It's a me problem, and they give me the option to pay more. So to the extent that CPAs can think about having strong, clear boundaries for their clients is good for their clients, rather than it being a penalty. They will train their clients to behave so much better, and they'll have better relationships in both directions.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. When is that book coming out?
Down to 40 Hours comes out in October. And then next year we'll do Business Boundaries for CPAs. One book at a time.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Well, we always like to get a book recommendation. So that would be one. What's another book you could recommend to our listeners?
I love $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy, because it's really easy to focus on the expertise of what you do, but it's harder to get into the head of your client. And his book does a wonderful job, super easy to read, fun to read, on how to think about how to get your clients results and how to scale, just like we're talking about, how to scale those results and how to scale your offers.
Love it. Yeah, that sounds like it's definitely a catchy title, but it goes back to that mindset shift that we were talking about earlier. And that's a necessary component to really move off of that billable hour. So that's a great suggestion for a book. And we're going to wrap up here shortly, but any cool apps that you've seen lately or anything?
I'm on a ruthless app diet.
The boundaries you're talking about. You're gonna walk the walk.
I just was getting so flooded with notifications, this and binging that I said, I'm done turning it all off. And it's amazing just how quickly you start to get your focus back and you can think more clearly. Because I'm such a huge proponent of simplifying. And the more you have running in your brain, the more complexities and complications, the harder it is to do high quality, high value work. So I am on an app diet. There's one screen on my phone. That's it.
Love it. Have you gotten a flip phone yet? You going to the
I'm going back to having to like JFK to text my friends.
Yeah. Well, Geraldine, it's always a pleasure. What's the best way for people to connect with you and follow you online?
So clearly you have podcast listeners, so they can check out my podcast if they want to. It's Business Strategy for CPAs, and they can find my website at GeraldineCarter.com.
Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure, Geraldine. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have to have you on for a fourth. I think that might be a record for us to go 4. So we'll see.
I'm all for records. Thanks for having me, Brent. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at PoeGroupAdvisors.com.